Hello and welcome back to the MineTrek.net game server. Yeah, this will be a short video on the Exodus build. I haven't actually been able to get online as much as I used to because of issues related to my ISP. Appears that somebody went around and broke a bunch of phone boxes, and that has caused a lot of problems for connectivity, and not just for myself, but for a lot of folk. And it appears that they can't replace a lot of the damaged components because they do not have them in stock and they have to order them from overseas. And well, times being the way they are. So, anyways, yeah, couple that with me just really being burned out on Minecraft in general because of all the drama and whatnot related to a lot of online gaming and communities and whatnot over the last couple of months has really just sucked the joy and the thrill of building out from under me. And yeah, it just is what it is. So moving on, I'll show you what I have done. We come into the Exodus here. I sort of fleshed out this area a little bit more. I'm very pleased with how it looks now. I think I'm happy with it. And so I went ahead and started working on these lower decks. I will add an aft torpedo launcher back here somewhere eventually and whatnot. But yeah, this deck here I'm pretty happy with, so I'm going to probably leave it alone now and move on to the lower decks down here. I've added in some escape pods. I'll probably add in a few more to kind of up the number just a tad. If we drop down below the ship here, we have this big yellow ball right here, and everybody it's a different opinion what it is depending on who you talk to. Some people say it's a tractor beam, other people say it's a bullseye. I have an idea for what I'm going to make it. I'm going to turn this into an umbilical. So basically, this will be a major connection point for if the ship has to say be in a space dock. This will be where the umbilicals will connect for the drive hull. The umbilicals on the top hull are those little cubicle things that go around the surface of the ship's upper hull. And I'm going to turn this into an EVA hatch and this area into an EVA locker, large. And again, this will be umbilicals. And don't get your pennies in a wad. This is my take on the build, and I'm going to go ahead and add an antimatter pod room. And this is just a mock-up currently, so I'm still working on the design. I'll probably move these turret ball phasers to the edge here to give myself a little bit more breathing room along this edge here for this copper line. And the copper line comes up into here and feeds up into this area here, which I still have, work in progress. I think QC mocked this up. Thank you, QC, for this and for the chat on how workhorse work and whatnot. I appreciate that. But I'm probably going to remodel this a little bit based upon my take on how I want the ship to be laid out. So keep that in mind. And as we transition out, I went ahead and mocked up the Arboretum brick area here. I went with the brown on brown wood tone to kind of lighten the overall feel. I didn't want to go with all white because that's very sterile, even though it would match the hull and everything else. I looked at it as all white and I didn't like the look of it. So I went ahead and went with the two-tone brown here. Again, I'm limited by the blocks I get to use. Vanilla Minecraft is what it is. This area is still a work in progress. I haven't fully fleshed it out yet, but yeah, kind of get a feel for it here. And we drop down into here. We have this area down in here as well. Now I realize I could ultimately just go hog wild and completely redesign the entire area and make this thing much larger and way more different than it currently is. But I went with the motion picture era for the interior stylistic design. And while the ship is definitely disco lineage, not motion picture lineage. So I have a lot more space to work with inside. I wanted to keep sort of a continuity between the motion picture Enterprise A and this take on what the A would, or the Enterprise, excuse me, the Constitution class would look like in a disco era lineage, evolution lineage. So keep that in mind. The difference between the disco era and the TMP era is the ships are much larger. That's one of the main things. So this ship is about half, again, larger than the Enterprise A that's currently on the server. And I have given some thought about going back through the Enterprise A and rebuilding it, much like I did with the Enterprise E and the Voyager, and actually doing the Aztecing on the hull and everything else. And keep in mind, this Aztecing is just my learning experience. So it's not perfect. I mean, it's not like you would see on the Disco or the the Kelvin. It's just something I had to learn on the fly because nobody wanted to help me, so I had to do it myself. And it is what it is. I got a lot of heat for the way the ship looked, and then once it was Aztec, everybody kind of saw what I was getting to. In other words, I they just saw a big chunk of rotten looking cotton and whatnot, and they bear with me, let me develop it, and you'll see what I see. And so that's where we are, and I'm very happy with how the hull came out with the Aztec, and I greatly appreciate D-Bomb, I Panic, and Mad Squirrel, and everybody else who lent a hand. Thank you. Thank you very much. And I highly recommend that if you haven't done any Aztecing yourself for any of your ships, to give it a spin. It's it's hard. It's an interesting learning curve to be sure, but it's one that it's a skill set I highly recommend you develop because and keep practice on because it is perishable. If you don't use it, you will lose it, and that sucks. But yeah, overall, I'm very pleased with it. And again, this is a disco era lineage evolution of what we saw, like with starting with the Enterprise, the disco era Enterprise. So MHeller imported a Constitution A-class hull with that in mind. And once the decks are laid out in this build here, and I'm happy with them, I will migrate them to the new Enterprise A for MineTrek and the Disco era A, and slightly modify them, of course, probably clean them up and rearrange a couple of layouts and whatnot. But yeah, overall, I won't touch the hull unless I do some Aztecing on it, but the interior stuff, I'm hoping that we can get, placed in and set up sometime this year. It's my hopes, anyways. One other thing I did do to the build here is I revamped the medical security deck down here. Let's go one more down. Here we are. I got rid of the cross corridor right here that I had. I didn't like it when I looked at it in the map because I have this one over here. So this one became very redundant. So I just removed it and turned this into a large battery area, leaving space for an office right here and then another office right here. And I reworked the security area, so I have two more brig cells, and that means this battery area is a little bit smaller. I have a lot of space along the outer edge here that's dedicated, well, earmarked for ship uh, equipment and whatnot, but I could actually expand the security section as well as the medical section, the areas that aren't going to be used for ship systems, because I have all of this real estate through here. It's going to be all tanks and life support stuff and whatnot. And I thought about putting a corridor on the outside of here, but when I mocked it up, it left this area here looking really thin. So I decided to go with the larger rooms and forgo an extra corridor over here. That was my take on it. Anyways, I'm kind of happy with the way it laid out. Of course, I have tanks and stuff all over the areas through here, so a lot of work still to do on her. And again, my motivation has suffered a big hit as of recent times, and it's just the way it is. And it just, hopefully things will smooth over, and I get the itch to come back and do a lot of hard work on my builds and whatnot, and work on other things. But right now, as it stands, I'm just kind of burned out. The drama really sucked it out of me, and I'm one of those kind of guys when the wind gets sucked out of my sails or spilled out of my sails, it's hard for me to catch the wind again. And what I tend to do is I go look for a new addiction. And I've been playing other games, including Satisfactory and a few others, and they're fun games. They really are. I highly recommend Satisfactory, but they just everything just seems flat these days. So while I'll try and stay on top of being active as far as building on things. Again, limitations are in place. Again, ISP issues and whatnot, and just a general um, downturn in my desire to play Minecraft as a whole, even modded Minecraft. And it just, I don't know. I guess it's just a sign of the times. But don't get discouraged. I'm still here. I'm still working on this build. There's still a lot of activity going on the MineTrek server. Just again, uh, slower going because of recent changes and whatnot. But it is what it is. And if you'd like to, I believe the other server where a lot of the guys have migrated to is called the Trek Crafter. Trek Crafting. Anyways, I apologize if I got the name wrong, but it's Trek Craft or something like that. They've got a couple of YouTube videos up, and You have to definitely listen to Droid's videos. The dude is got some really good broadcasting voice. It does a really nice narration of what he's working on, and I believe McMuffins also has some videos up and whatnot. So yeah, definitely check them out and be sure to drop a like on their videos and sub to them because those guys are pretty talented folk and they deserve all the attention they can get for their skill and everything else. And I greatly appreciate you all taking the time to watch this video and wish you all the best. And I'll catch you in the next one. Again, this is the MineTrek.net game server. Have a great day. Bye bye.